Okay, hello everybody, and welcome to season 2, episode 1 of Beyond the Abstracts. And today I'm here with Satoko Watkins. Satoko, thank you very much for joining me.
No, thank you for inviting me.
My pleasure. So I'll have introduced you briefly in the text accompanying this episode, but could you also give your brief bio?
Sure. Hi, I'm Satoko, and I am a learning advisor and associate professor at Self-Access Learning Center, SALC, in Kanda University of International Studies. I've been working there since 2013, and my main responsibility here includes creating social learning opportunities, more like pro-social learning opportunity. Pro-social learning is not just learning with others, it's more about learners working together and contributing to others' learning. So I create those opportunities in the SOC. So I started peer advising, tandem language exchange, interest-based learning communities, student-led events. So I guess I started those projects first, and that became my responsibility. And I am also a PhD student at Tsukuba University, majoring counseling science psychology major.
I see. That's a impressive background.
No, not at all.
So I read a little about that
Mm-hmm.
you switched between kind of a teaching role and the learning advisor role that you
Mm-hmm.
mentioned. Could you
That's
talk a
right.
little bit about what was behind that?
Sure. So after I got TESOL master's degree, I start working in Japan, working at two universities teaching English, global study content-based English. Um, and I loved it.
Mhm.
I love I loved students and all those like energy that you get from classroom teaching. Um, but at the same time, I felt I was teaching 300 students, being part-time teaching 10 classes with 30 students like that, right? And since I was young, I could remember their faces back then, but still I couldn't spend enough time with them. Student asked me to their club teacher,
Right.
like a charge of club, but I can't, I'm part-time. Or like they want to talk to me, but I have to run to next university, right? So I just felt like I didn't have enough time to
Mm-hmm.
get to know these students. And also, I felt the limitation. I teach something in class, but I don't know how they use it outside the classroom, which is more important to me.
Uh-huh.
Like how are they using it in real life? Um, then I learned about this job at learning advising. And I thought like, oh, that's my dream job. And it has been more than 10, 12 years, and it's still my dream job.
Right. Wow, that's I'm sure many people are envious of you to find your dream like that. So you
Mhm.
also mentioned in your introduction about your doctoral studies,
Mhm.
and you mentioned it's counseling, right? So it
Mhm.
sounds like more of a kind of psychological theme.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, could you give us a little more detail about that and your work? Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, I think it was quite natural that, I became more interested in psychology because as a learning advisor, I help students to be autonomous learner, right? But learner autonomy is not something that you can teach. We believe something that you can train or you can obtain by practicing. How you practice is usually self-directed learning skills, like helping them learn those self-directed learning skills, like helping them find their own goals, not from teacher or parents. They decide what's important to them, what kind of needs they have, and they analyze it. They choose goal, and they find the resources and strategy that help them achieve goal, and also something that suits them, suits their learning style, and and then they make a learning plan.
Mhm.
And the biggest difficulty is usually the affective matters. so confidence, motivation. So in order to support those self-directed learning, what we do is advising to help them reflect on their experience, learning process. But then always this confidence issues or motivation. How can we keep going? And that kind of thing always made me interested in more about what person think, what people are thinking, and all that. But actually, the reason why I started PhD in psychology was not that, because advising is something that I already practice, but I learned this self-directed learning is so useful in many areas.
Okay.
I have a neurodivergent son, and it was so helpful, like finding his needs and all that kind of things. And I felt like there's more that I can do outside this university and outside this what I know. And in order to step out what I know, I needed more experience in psychology fields. So what I'm doing in my PhD study is that I'm working with children, Japanese children, who are not attending school, and it's quite big. I don't say, I guess, problem, issues, difficulties, that kind of thing. But it's just big number of students who are not attending school. I don't feel like attending school is must, but still, not being able to learn is a problematic. And also their parents are also struggling. What can I do? My kids is home all day, every day. And so I thought helping those kids, train them with the learn autonomy, and also helping them with the autonomy and psychological well-being, and also helping their parents to be autonomy supportive of those children. So that's what I'm doing currently in that
Wow, it sounds
PhD.
really valuable.
Hopefully. I
No,
like it. I
it
like what
does.
I'm doing. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a really nice introduction to you and your interests, I think. So in particular today we were going to talk about your book.
That's right.
Yeah. So the title is From
Today.
Student to Community Leader. Oh, there it is. You can keep holding it up. That was great.
Right here.
That's fine, right? From Student to Community Leader, a guide
Mhm.
for autonomy-supportive leadership development. And it was published with your co-author, Daniel Hooper, 2 years ago in March 2023 by Kanda and Maynard as part of their Positive Pedagogical Praxis series. So congratulations on the book. I
Thank
enjoy
you.
reading it a lot. I think it's pretty relevant, both in Japan and outside too. So that first kind of phrase that jumps out in the title is community leader, community leadership, like particularly because you've got this psychological training and psychology background. Could you talk a little bit kind of more broadly, maybe like in education and then possibly like in Japan specifically, about the role of a leader in any kind of community, and then maybe in an educational community, and then particularly here in Japan?
I'm not sure I can do that. I'm not a leadership expert in
Okay.
general. I mean, this book covers different type of leadership. There is unit for leadership, leadership style, and I help my students learn about different leadership, and they always have actually that's usually their favorite, one of the favorite unit, because in Japan, when we say leader is like, come follow me, I make decision for you and you can do what I say.
Okay.
That
Very
kind of image.
top down.
Yeah, command, yeah, kind of leadership style. And that's often they want to be. I'm not sure they want to be, but that's what people think of. Like, even if it's not command leader, more like a visionary leader. Like I have big visions that help you achieve these things. others are follower of the leaders.
I see.
Yeah, that's quite common. And so far, I've been working, helping students with this course about leadership, and most of them have this. And they also feel kind of nervous. I guess I probably should explain that I'm teaching this course with community leaders. I help, as I mentioned, I help students build interest-based learning communities. So they're community about superheroes, community about LGBTQ plus issues, community about all different things. They talk, they learn, they decide how they learn, what they learn, but they use English as a tool to learn what they're interested in. But then in one of my research found that community leader has this important role that make the, I guess, community climate more autonomy supportive. And now leaders needs to be not only autonomous, they're already autonomous, they start a community, but they have to help other people to be autonomous.
So it's a kind of transfer of this.
That's right.
From the leader to the community members. So yeah, when I was reading the introduction, this quote from you jumped out at me, and I wonder if you could expand on it a little bit. It was, participation in a community is not simply a matter of doing, but rather becoming. So we get some kind of process taking place there. Could you talk about that?
That came from the idea of a community of a practice. I'm sure Dan Hooper already talked about it, but so community and community of practice are different. In the community, you can learn same things together. You share interest and you can learn things together. But community of practice, everybody has to kind of negotiate, contribute, like pro-social learning that I was talking about. They have to, it's not only one person manage and lead that community. Everybody is important member, and we have to find a way to community to evolve. So everybody has the role for community to evolve. So that's why this leadership style that I'm teaching is autonomy supportive leadership, which is helping other people to take on those roles and community to grow.
I see. So it's kind of, rather than being a top down, it's more kind of flat, hierarchical, but also dynamic. Like it's changing and shifting all the time, but centered around some interest. Yeah, the becoming part. Interesting. You used the word autonomy several times already, and I think it gets confusing because it's used a lot in academic work in different ways. So some of the perspectives that you talk about in the book, which also you mentioned before, are in self-determination theory, right? But then we also have a different understanding of it in language learning. And then I suppose also in your book as well, there's a slightly different understanding of it too. So just to help the audience understand those different ways that autonomy can be understood, perhaps in the simplest possible terms, could you define those differently?
It is a tricky question, isn't it? So let's start with the autonomy and self-determination theory. So in self-determination theory, autonomy is one of the basic psychological needs. So autonomy is the feeling that your action is based on your beliefs and wants, and you feel like like self-endorsement, right? It has other two basic psychological needs, which are competence, like feeling of I can improve, I can learn, I can do this, and relatedness, which is feeling close to other people. And when those three basic psychological needs are fulfilled, people, learners, motivation, intrinsic motivation is increased, and also psychological well-being is promoted. And on the other hand, I call it learner autonomy to differentiate. Learner autonomy in language learning field, it's the capacity to control your own learning. But that includes so much. To me, it includes the autonomy in psychology field as well, because capacity to control their own learning or taking responsibility of their own learning. I mean, Benson and David Little, and they can explain so much better. That includes like working with others as well, because language learning, you can't learn by yourself. It's a communication tool. You have to collaborate with others, and if you need help, you have to reach out. So autonomy is not being independent. It has to have this willingness to work with others. And also, we talk about intrinsic motivation in psychology, but that's something that you have to control in order to take responsibility of your own learning. Like earlier I mentioned, affective issues, confidence, which is competent, or motivation. You have to have the ability to be able to manage all this. So it's really intertwined concept. And also advising is the way to help those learners reflect, right? And then help them become autonomous learner. But there is things called need support in basic psychological needs. And need support is basically to support people's, help people fulfill these needs. So, like being a good listener, giving choices, explaining the rationale, accepting negative feeling, which is very, very similar to advising.
Right.
Yeah, so it's really, really connected in many levels. And so this book, we use two words, autonomy for basic psychological needs and learner autonomy for a self-directed learning skill. But I think in general, not only this book, but my research as well, I always cover both.
Okay.
All that important. I can't separate it too well.
Right. No, and it's good to address both sides of that question, and thank you for clarifying it a bit.
I hope I did.
Yeah, so who's the main audience of this book? Who is it primarily for when you made it?
Sorry, my cat. So this book said that audience is student facilitator. So basically, students support students, right?
Okay.
But then also, I was thinking it's more. This book more includes like how to help, like autonomy supportive facilitator. So student facilitator, it goes just this person supporting student, but this person supporting this person to support other people's autonomy.
I see.
Does it make
It's like
sense?
a kind of second order
Yeah, so I
relationship.
think it's more about the second, autonomy support facilitator. Autonomy supportive facilitator. Yeah.
Okay. So what kind of people are those kind of concretely?
That's right. Of course, the learning advisor like me who works with communities, but I know it's a rare situation, right? And now I work with, I worked with parents and children, and I realized that it's really applicable in many different fields. And I think I felt that I knew that it can be useful to other people, but now I have more experience that I'm more confident that can be used. And also right now I'm teaching inclusive education seminar, and I realize how important this concept is in my class as well.
Okay. So parents, teachers,
teachers, definitely classroom
learning,
teachers.
like the people supporting students who are
Oh, and
facilitating other students, administrators.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I taught this a course. Oh, I work with admin staff with this course, and that changed my job.
Well, you need everybody kind of connected to this to understand, to be kind of pulling in the same direction. Yeah,
exactly.
I'm
Like they understand where I'm coming from, and why this is so important to me, and why this is not, like it's not important. Like some rules that is not so important, it just kills autonomy kind of situation, But they understand and they support me, and that's really changed my job.
Okay. Yeah, great. Got to have the administrators on side.
Right.
Yeah. So you said that it's kind of a rare situation to have like a main learning advisors like that. It's not everyone or every institution that has these. So just especially for people that aren't so familiar with this position of learning advisor, and because you are one, so I think you're a good person to ask. Could you talk kind of specifically about what it is that you do, or learning advisors in general, if you're able to, and skill development for learning advisors, and why is it such a key role in this book?
All right. So where should I start? But as I mentioned, that I help students develop self-directed learning skills.
Okay.
Because I think, learning advisors' main responsibility or main goal is to promote learner autonomy of students, right? So we want students to take control of their learning, and learner skill training is one of them. So I offer not only Kanda, but many places offer self-directed learning courses, classes, module. So setting goals, making choosing resources, making plans, things like that. But advising is the way to help them keep going and help them reflect more by using advising skills. I think I introduced Kelly's micro skill, probably not all of it, but we used various advising techniques. For example, of course, listening, but we like a lot of time when I say I'm an advisor, people think I advise people, but I don't. I'm a listener, and I ask lots of questions to help the person think about themselves, or help them talk about it. But in order to talk about themselves, I help them using those skills like paraphrasing, restating, all those things. And, what was the question? I forgot.
So, okay, so I think we got like a little bit of an idea about how you develop the skills of being an advisor, like what the job is,
right,
as well. What's the kind of role of the learning advisor in your book?
All right. I think it's all of it is like based on advising practice, because in order to help other people, to help other people's autonomy, support other people's autonomy, you have to have this advising skill, right? Or need support skill. So advising dialogue is everywhere in each unit, because I wanted people to see how advising is done, how we can listen to other people, and how not to give advice.
Right, how to be kind of questioning and give space for the advisee rather than taking control yourself. Must be a hard skill to learn.
So yeah, it's hard to control yourself, but it can be useful in many different, like as I said, this books can be for classroom teacher. This book is for parents, because advising skill is useful in many different fields.
Right. Do you recommend that learning advisors kind of get to grips with the literature about learning advising, or do they more just go through personal experience of doing it and then reflecting on that, and that's how they develop these skills, or is it both ways at the same time?
I think it's both way. You probably have to believe in it. I think advising is not for everybody, even though I said this book is for everybody. But like if you feel anxious, not having control, or you're worried about not knowing where you're going, or not being able to achieve. That's if you're afraid of it, probably advising is too much. But of course you can personality wise, but of course everybody can use it in different way, different degree. But yeah, so first, like you read researches, or it doesn't have to be research, but learning from dialogue and how this work in this way.
I see.
But actually, I think it's probably quite easy to see, because in my PhD study, I had this big, not that big, but questionnaire, like 100 parents questionnaire, and they all know from experience that controlling behavior, telling children what to do, does not work.
Okay, so they they don't need to engage with the academic literature about this topic. They just learn the kind of obvious truth through their personal experience.
We probably know in the bottom that controlling behavior doesn't work, and autonomy-supportive way works.
Yeah, right. It's not about parents, but yeah, in the book there was another quote that I noticed that I liked, which is the learning advisors are experts in language learning and learner autonomy, but the learners are experts in themselves. So
exactly.
That's kind of that the person seeking their help might on some level already know what they need.
Yeah,
and they just need help to draw it out of them a little bit.
Exactly. I'm sure when you teach somebody and when you know that she or he is not going to do it. Right? So like a lot of times students come and ask me, like, I want to speak English. I want to be able to speak English better. What can I do? And if I say, okay, A and B and C, there you go. Why don't you try those things? That usually doesn't work. And advising approach is like, oh, you want to be able to speak better. In what kind of situation do you want to improve? What kind of situation do you feel that you are not good enough? Because it's maybe different, classroom discussion, everyday conversation, or I ask like, what have you done so far? What do you do? Maybe this person already have done a whole bunch of things, and then I'm just repeating it, and then she will be like, oh, this person is useless. So there we don't know that this person, what she has done, why she feels that way. Maybe her English is really good, much better than I am, but she just doesn't have confidence.
Right. Okay. Like you mentioned before.
So, depending on that, approach we should take is quite different. So learner they are expert of themselves, and I just want help this person to explore themselves and their possibility and learning about themselves as a learner.
So the book is kind of, I looked at chapter 3 in particular. It's kind of like textbook, really, like in a way to kind of structure that process, I think. And in particular, in that chapter I read, there were 3 activities that that were given. Could you talk about? I mean, I guess I'll put some, brief explanation of what they are as well, like in the text accompanying this video. But could you talk a bit about each of the activities and why you selected them and the purpose of them, and the kind of context that you expect they would be used in?
So chapter 3 is advising, right? Actually, this book is formatted, the format is same in every unit. It's based on this experiential learning cycle by Kolb. So basically, you learn and you think about what you're going to learn, and you learn deeper, you actually experience and practice, and you reflect on the experience, and you evaluate the experience, and then going next and next. That's the self-directed learning cycle that we usually use. So this textbook is also going in the same way, that you learn a little bit about advising, and you either in class or one-on-one situation, it's different, but you explore a little bit more about, in activity 1, you explore the concept. If you're a good reader, you can read about it. And we give some citations and references, and has questions to think about what you want to know more. And activity 2 is the advising and advice given that we just talked about. This one is so advising. In order to give good advice, you have to know that particular situation. This one, the example here is the sales or business situation that usually our students don't know, and I don't know. But in order to give advice in that salesman is really difficult because we don't know. But advice given is difficult. Sorry. But advising, you don't have to know about it. You don't have to know anything about business. You don't have to.
I see.
You have to ask questions to help this person find the answer, right? So this one is more about practice. And when I do that with my students, and then I ask, when is the last time you gave advice to other people, like advice given to other people, and what do you think would have happened if you didn't give advice and you just did advising? And they're like, oh, that's interesting. And my favorite one, like last week, was that her dad asked her what he can do to improve English skill, and she gave all those advice that she has done. Her English is very good, and she was like, and then her dad is not doing anything. So she was like, why she's not doing anything? I gave all those good advice. And then after she thought about this question, she was like, oh, maybe he just wanted to talk to me. That was just a conversation topic. Or maybe I should have asked him like why he wants to improve English, that kind of thing, like reflecting what could happen. So it's more into practice, but not actual practice. But activity 3 is a role play. So having other person and trying it out. So yeah, basically experiential learning cycle.
I see. And you use this with students in class?
Class. Oh yes, I have it taught in the class.
You mentioned before, like you have a class as well as the learning advice side. I wonder if you applied this in the classroom.
Yeah. Actually, yeah, class. In John Marshall Reeve. Yeah, he was there at the conference the other day, and I've been citing him so many times. But he was talking about need supportive class climate. which is the autonomy-supportive class climate, basically the same thing. So if you practice these autonomy-supportive practice or advising skill in the class became more autonomy-supportive.
Okay, so not just in the kind of learning, advising, self-access center context, but also possibly like the same approach could be transposed to the classroom as well.
Exactly. Yeah, the one that I often get, it's not the classroom advising practice, but it happens in classroom, is that, when students say, like, my project partner doesn't do anything and I'm doing everything, and she's mad and she's frustrated. And that situation, I usually use advising skill, like, oh, I'm sorry that you feel like you have to do everything, but then use advising skill to ask, like, why do you think your partner is not doing anything? And she's like, I don't know. She doesn't speak in the class. She doesn't do anything. And then we talk about, like, why do you think she is not so motivated? And she's like, oh, she doesn't have friends in class. Like, oh, maybe that's why. And then if we cover this basic psychological needs theory, that's relatedness, and we have this like aha moment, right? So like, how can we help with this friend or classmate to feel more related to the class? So it happens in classroom, sometimes in a one-on-one situation, sometimes in a bigger situation.
That's really interesting that the same approach is usable in the classroom, outside of the classroom, in the kind of learning advice context. What kind of feedback do you get from students?
Actually, it's really positive. I feel like I would think student was like, why do I have to help other student, right? But they are quite logical and realistic. So when I tell them, like, this situation is going to happen even after you graduate when you're working, and they're like, yeah, I have to know how to manage this situation. Manage this situation.
Right.
So yeah, they really actually work on it.
Okay, no, that's good to know. Yeah, because I just wondered when I'm reading, like, you must hear a lot back from the people who use the book. So that's really positive to hear. I've taken a lot of your time already, so I don't want to talk on for too much longer, but your book was published 2 years ago. Have you made any changes to the way that you do things, or do you understand things any differently now, 2 years later, than from March 2023? And could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's a good question. As I mentioned, since it's been 2 years that we wrote this book, and I've been using it in more different contexts, that I feel more, I could imagine more how we can use in different situation. So like, this unit has a vision, like helping community leaders to think about vision, what important for them, and why this community exists, and what's the principle to achieve this vision. These things, I was doing it in community one-on-one with leaders, but now I'm teaching the class in order to create needs supportive class climate. Having those setting the vision at the beginning makes a huge difference, isn't it? And in the middle of the situation in the class, and things not going well, and we can ask, like, does it fit in our principle? We talked about this principle.
The vision, you mean the individual vision, or a vision for the whole class?
Whole
What do you mean?
classroom,
The whole class. Okay.
So like, what's important to them? What kind of, classroom do we want?
Okay, so it has to be some kind of like meaningful, value-oriented
Yes, values.
behavior. Right, I
Right.
see.
It's not like as a teacher we set learning outcomes, like in order to, in this class we should be able to achieve this and this and this, but not that. It's more about values, what important to us and what important to our peers.
And so, like you said, when we talked about the audience, this book is a lot primarily for facilitators of students. You might be learning advisors like yourself, but I'm also just because I'm a teacher, and so I'm wondering about teachers as well. Could these principles be put into professional development, do you think, so that teachers can be, learn how to engage in this kind of dialogue when they have a large class of students? So what are some kind of effective ways to do that? I know, what do you think about that?
Oh, definitely. When I understand when the institution gets bigger, it's hard to control, how to manage, and it's easy to go to this management perspective. But advising perspective is to connect with those individuals, learning about these individuals, and those people feel supported, right? Support and feel connected, and they want to contribute more. So I think overall, it takes longer. Advising approach takes much longer than controlling or, management approach. But I think overall, it creates more positive working atmosphere and helping other people support other people's research and classroom, collaboration. Overall, it just makes it better environment.
That sounds really valuable, like the kind of thing that new teachers should be, learning to do while they're still kind of malleable, where we can change their thoughts. Yeah. So that was all the questions that I prepared to talk about with you. But I guess, is there anything you wanted to add, like a kind of final comment?
No, I think I was able to say what I wanted to say.
Okay, super.
So just organizing all this. I know my idea goes everywhere in general. You are like advisor today.
Yeah, it's the impact of reading the book. So the book, one more time, is from Student Community Leader, a guide for autonomy-supportive leadership development, written by you and Daniel Hooper in March 2023, and published by Candlin and Maynard as part of their
Autonomy-Supportive publisher.
Yeah, yes, that's right. Yeah, definitely. So it's part of the Positive Pedagogical Praxis series. All right. So, Satoko, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, wonderful.
Wonderful.